Hi everyone, this is the third video to graphing quadratics. So I want to look at equations that they give us that might not have the, all three parts that we're used to seeing in a quadratic equation. So let's go ahead and just get into it, okay? So the first thing I like to do is I like to go ahead and just draw my x and y axis. So let's go ahead and kind of draw it like this. My x and my y. So this is your x and this is your y, okay? Now, our equation that they give us is f of x equals 3x squared, okay? Our first step, like what we've done, is we need to identify a, b, and c. So our a is 3. Our b, we don't have a b. We don't have just a plain x. So if we wanted to, we could say plus 0x. If it doesn't exist, plus 0. So we've done our a, b, because this is just b is our one with our plain x, and our c. So b is 0 and c is 0. So we've done our a, b, and c. Now, our second step, we need to determine if it is concave up or down. So our concavity, okay? So when we are looking at our concavity, we always look at our a, and it is a positive 3. And if it is positive, it is going to be concave up, okay? So we know that our graph is going to look like this. And we've discussed that in our previous video, so we know this is concave up. And we know that because of our sign that's positive. If it was negative, then we know it would be down. But it is positive, so it is concave up. Number 3. Number 3, we are looking for our axis of symmetry. So axis of symmetry. And we find our axis of symmetry using our equation x equals -1 times b over 2 times a. So let's go ahead and fill this in. So -1 times b over 2 times a. So let's go back up here and figure that out. So our b is right here, 0. Our a is 3. So -1 times 0 is 0 over 2 times 3 is 6, and 0 divided by 6 is 0. So we know that our x is going to equal 0. So our axis of symmetry. And for the purposes of step 3, we're going to box this. And let's go ahead and draw our axis of symmetry. And it's hard to see because it is right down the middle. If it is 0, we know it is right here on the axis, 0. Okay, so I kind of made these marks a little bit wider so you understand that our axis of symmetry is here. Okay, now we need to find our vertex. So that's step 4, our vertex. Okay, so when we find our vertex, we have to take our original equation, f of x equals 3x squared. So let's write that. F of x equals 3x squared. Okay, and what we are going to do is plug our x in for x. The x that we found for our axis of symmetry right here. Because remember, f of x is our y. So we're going to say f of x or y equals 3 times, and then we're replacing our x with a 0. And when we, calculate that, or if we want to just go ahead and put that into our calculator just to kind of check our answers, we're going to say 3 times 0 squared. And that gives us f of x equals 0. So we know that our vertex x is 0 and y is 0. So this is our vertex. So let's go ahead and plot that point right here. So we know this is our vertex, okay? Now we need to figure out, so we know it's going to be going in the up direction. So let's go ahead and figure out the rest of our points. So what we're going to do here is we're going to go ahead and create our table. So step 5 is creating our table. And remember, we're going to have our x and our y's here, and make sure we have, 5 kind of slots or little blanks. So we have 1, 2, 3, 4, and 5. And in the middle, right here, we're putting our vertex. And our vertex was 0, 0, so we're going to write 0, 0 here. 0, 0, 0, 0. And then we're going to go ahead and start filling in this table. Remember, we put our smaller numbers up here, and then our bigger numbers right here. So if we went in order, it would go 0, -1, -2, 0, 1, 2. We choose the number so it's going straight in order. Now, to figure out our y, we're going to do the same thing we did with our vertex. We are going to take the equation, f of x equals 3x squared, and we are plugging in our new x right here. So we know it's going to be 3 times whatever x is squared. And our x is -2, so we're going to write -2 right here. And we're going to put that into our calculator. 3 times -2 squared. And we get 12. Positive 12. For this one, we're going to say 3 times whatever's right here squared. And whatever's right here is -1. Let's put that into our calculator. 3 times -1 squared. And we get 3. So let's go ahead and write that into our blank right here, 3. We already did our vertex over here. Our vertex is right here. So down here we're going to say 3 times whatever this x is squared. And it is a 1. So we're going to put a 1 in right there. 3 times 1 squared. And we get 3. This is already looking great, 3 and 3. So I anticipate that this one's going to be a 12. Let's just check it anyway. 3 times, this should be a 2. 3 times 2 because that's our x squared. Okay. So when I put it into the calculator, so they're 2 and our 2. 3 times 2 squared gives us a 12. Awesome. So now we have the rest of the 4 points to make this graph. So let's go ahead and plot our points. So we have -2 and 12. Okay, so -2, we're going to go to the left 2, 1, 2, and we're going to go up 12. 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right here. It almost fell off of my paper. That's okay. We're just going to keep going with it, okay? Then we have -1, 3. Okay? So we're going to say -1, so 0, -1, up 3. 1, 2, 3. Awesome. Okay? Now, we have 1 and 3 here. So we're going to go over here and go 1, up 3. 1, 2, 3. Great. And then we have 2 and 12. So we're going to go to the right 2, 1, 2, and up 12. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12. Right here. And I know this is looking like it's falling off of my paper, and I apologize, but it's okay. It is okay. So what we're going to do is now we're going to go ahead and just connect our points all the way up, and it's going to go over my title, which is okay. And then this one, we're going to go all the way up. And there you have it. And if you have to, just continue that axis of symmetry all the way up. And that's okay if it goes, way off, because sometimes it will happen, but you kind of understand the projection. Like these graphs can be pretty large. And I know I kind of messed up right there. I mean, if you would just kind of, my hand slipped. Okay, so let's look at another example where it may not have all three pieces. So I'm going to turn this over, and I already have our equation picked out, okay? So we have f of x equals negative x squared plus 2. I'm going to go ahead and draw my x and y table. Just going to kind of draw it off to the side. I mean my x and y axis graph. I think I said table, but that's not what I meant. I'm sorry. I apologize. And we are going to go ahead and do it like this. So we have our x and we have our y. Okay? So let's go ahead and start. Step 1. Identify your A, B, and C. So our A is negative 1. Take the sign with it, negative 1. Our B is 2. And our C is, not here. So we'll just add on a plus 0 right there. And we're going to say 0. That's okay. If it doesn't exist, we're just going to put our 0 there. Okay? So we have negative 1, 2, and 0. Awesome. Number 2, let's determine if it is concave up or concave down. Okay, so 2, concavity. So to determine our concavity, we have to look at A. A is negative 1. Oops, it's negative. And if it is negative, then we know that it is going to be going in the down direction like that. So we know that this is concave down. Okay. Perfect, right? So we know our graph's going to have to look like this. Okay. Now, number 3, what we're going to find here is our axis of symmetry. So our formula for the axis of symmetry is x equals negative 1 times b over 2 times a. So we know it's going to be negative 1 times whatever b is over 2 times whatever a is. So let's check back up here. Our b is 2 and our a is negative 1. See, I'm taking the signs, guys. Make sure you are taking the signs. And so negative 1 times 2 is negative 2. And 2 times negative 1 is going to be negative 2. And that equals, so negative 2 divided by negative 2 is positive 1. I'm coming down because there's, a hole in my paper. See? Okay. So 1. So we know that our x equals 1 for our axis of symmetry. So let's go over here and graph it. So we're going to go start at origin. Our 1, we go to the right one because it's a positive 1. And we're going to go ahead and put in our axis of symmetry. I'll go ahead and label that. Axis of symmetry. Okay. Now, we need to go ahead and find our vertex. Step 4. Vertex. So for our vertex, we have to go back up to the original equation, which is this right here, negative x squared plus 2x, and write that down. So we have f of x equals negative x squared plus 2x. F of x is also like our y, so what we're going to do is we're going to be plugging in this 1 in for x here and right there. Okay? So let's go ahead and rewrite that. So f of x is going to equal negative whatever x is squared plus 2 times whatever x is. So let's go ahead and put that into our blanks. It's 1 and 1. Now let's put this into our calculator and let's put it in exactly, right? So I'm turning my calculator. I'm going to clear out whatever we did. So I have negative, parentheses, 1 squared, don't forget that negative here because I have a negative out here, plus 2 times 1. And I get f of x equals 1. So our vertex is x is 1 and y, or f of x, is 1. So this is our vertex. Let's go ahead and plot that on our graph. So we have 1, so we go to the right one, and then up 1. Perfect, right? Let's go ahead and label that. This is our vertex, right in the middle. Okay? Now, let's finish making the rest of our graph. We know it's going to look similar to this, but we need to know where those points are. Okay? So let's go ahead and make this table. So, step 5, the table. So we know we're going to have an x piece and a y piece, and we know we need to have about 5 blanks. 1, 2, 3, 4, one more, 5. And right in the middle, we are putting our vertex. And our vertex is 1, 1. 1, 1. Okay, now for our x's, we're going to go ahead and fill these in. Remember, smaller numbers up here, bigger numbers down here. Okay, so what's smaller than 1? 0, negative 1. What's bigger than 1? 1, 2, 3. Now, in order to figure out what our y's are, we'll have to do the same thing we did with our vertex, which is plugging in the x's into the equation. So our equation is f of x equals negative x squared plus 2x, right? So now we're going to say negative whatever our x is squared plus 2 times whatever our x is, right? So our x is negative 1, and we're going to put negative 1 right here. Okay? Now let's go ahead and put this into our calculator. So we have a negative here, so we're going to say negative parentheses, negative 1 parentheses squared plus 2 parentheses negative 1, 2 times negative 1. And we get negative 3. So let's write negative 3 right here. Okay? Let's do the same thing. So we have negative whatever our x is, which is 0, plus 2 times whatever our x is, which is 0. Let's fill that in. So we get our 0 here, 0 and 0. Let's put that into our calculator. So we have negative parentheses 0 parentheses squared plus 2 times 0. And we get 0 in our calculator. So 0 goes right here. Now let's do it again. And we have negative whatever x is squared plus 2 times whatever x is. And we know that we have a 2 here, so we're going to put a 2 here for the x, and we're going to put it into our calculator. I think it should be 0 because 0 is right here. So I'm going to put that in. So negative 2 squared plus 2 times 2, which is 0. Okay. And then here, we're going to do the same thing. We have negative whatever x is plus 2 times whatever x is, and we have 3 as our x, 3. So we're going to put 3 in our blanks, and I think it's going to be a negative 3 because I have it here, but let's check in our calculator. Negative times 3 squared plus 2 times 3, and that is a negative 3. Negative 3. Now let's go ahead and plot our points, okay? Let's plot them. So we have, move this down, we have negative 1 and negative 3. Negative 1, so we're going to go to the left, negative 1, and we're going to go down 1, 2, 3. Negative 3. Okay? Now here we have 0, 0. 0, 0, right in the middle, right at the origin. Don't have to move anywhere. We've already done our vertex. Now we have 2, 0. So we're going to go to the right 2, and it says 0, so we don't have to go up or down, so it's right here. And then we have 3, negative 3. So we're going to start here and go 1, 2, 3, and then down 3, 1, 2, 3. And there you go. Go ahead and complete the graph like this. And there you go. You graphed another quadratic.